I left these shores at Vancouver a red-hot imperialist. I wanted the American eagle to go screaming into the Pacific. It seemed tiresome and tame for it to content itself with the Rockies. Why not spread its wing over the Philippines, I asked myself. And I thought it would be a real good thing to do. But I have thought some more since then, and I have read carefully the Treaty of Paris, ending the Spanish-American War, and I've seen that we do not intend to free, but to subjugate the people of the Philippines. We have gone there to conquer, not to redeem. It should, it seems to me, be our pleasure and duty to make those people free and let them deal with their own domestic questions in their own way. And so I am an anti-imperialist. I am opposed to having the eagle put its talons on any other land. That, of course, was Mark Twain.
Of course, the famous nom de plume.
The nom de plume.
The nom de plume.
Of the great Samuel Clemens.
Yes, Mark Twain. This quote really captures the tension at the heart of this era that we're going to be talking about today. Are we the champion of liberty, the United States of America? Are we the champion of liberty and freedom and revolution? Or are we the newest contestant in this global game of empire?
Right. And by the late 1800s, the United States is really standing at the proverbial crossroads. We got industrial power, massive production and rising confidence, but also a deep anxiety about the future because the frontier, as Frederick Jackson Turner told us, is closing. And immigration and cities are transforming society, and the world looks like it's being carved up by European empires.
So today's story is really about how America's old habit, expansion, changes addresses from wagon trails to warships.
Oh, that's very good. The W's, wagons to warships.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we're going to trace the ideas that justified this imperialism, and then we're going to walk through the splendid little war, which is the Spanish-American War, and what comes after, right? If we gain new territories, then, of course, we have new debates and a new question. What kind of a nation are we becoming?
So then we're going to pivot to the progressive movement because
Pivot!
Yes, because although that might
episode of Friends. Pivot!
because that
Pivot!
yeah
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because that might seem strange, right? To jump from imperialism to progressivism, we're going to argue that they're actually intertwined. It's the same generation that we're talking about here, except now they're talking about cleaning up the government, regulating big business, and arguing about whether the United States should take these new progressive ideas and spread them to a new overseas empire.
And spoiler alert, they do not all agree. Also, Teddy Roosevelt shows up with a horse and a headline.
Yes, I made Mr. Hill laugh during the intro music.
Did you guys hear me laughing? I was trying to cover
Score.
it up. Yeah.
So let's start with the background story today. The country told itself for decades that expansion was its destiny.
Right. And when people in the 1840s said manifest destiny, they weren't just describing our movement west.
Man, you better fest this destiny.
What?
I just came up with that.
Man, you better fest.
Man?
You better fest. What does fest mean?
Well, just is the end of manifest.
Yeah.
Man.
Was that
I mean, it didn't.
was that kind of a
Yeah, it was. But you said it with confidence.
It did. You did. So it landed that way.
Right. So
I'm going to stop interrupting.
manifest destiny wasn't just describing a movement west. We were actually describing sort of this moral justification for why the West needed to be conquered. And John O'Sullivan famously said, our manifest destiny to overspread the continent. What he meant by that, it's providence. It's God given that we are supposed to move west, and this is the story that we have to tell.
We are the chosen ones, which, that all sounds really inspiring until you remember it also meant people being displaced, conquest occurring, and the idea that other peoples were obstacles to the free development of Americans.
So by the 1890s, you've got really a second idea adding fuel, and that's the frontier thesis. When Frederick Jackson Turner, the famous American historian, argued that American identity was shaped by this recurring rebirth on the frontier. He said, quote, "American social development has been continually beginning over again on the frontier, and without it, who are we?"
Yeah, if our frontier is what has remade us over and over and over again as we move that line westward to the Pacific Ocean, what happens when that frontier line stops moving?
You got to go get another one, I guess.
Yeah, so where are we gonna get another one? That's the question, right? Expansion has traditionally been this pressure valve, this release. As more and more people flood into eastern cities, migration can move west, relieving the pressure economically, politically, even psychologically. And by the late 1800s, the United States is industrializing so rapidly in steel, railroads, oil, mass production. And business leaders and politicians are starting to worry about this question of markets and resources. If we keep producing more than Americans can buy, what's going to happen? How are we going to continue to sell and build the economy?
We almost became too good at producing.
Yeah, we did.
We became too efficient. So the language starts to shift. It's not settle the West anymore at the turn of the century. It's open new markets. It is acquire strategic ports and coaling stations and have a larger naval reach. And it's empire talk at the highest levels of government.
So, who's pushing this? Enter the Jingo.
The Jingo stole my baby.
Again,
Well done.
no, not well done.
No, okay, I'm sorry.
It
Dingo,
always
jingo.
sounds like a slur to me.
You know where the etymological derivation of that word is? So it comes from
Jinx.
because you've got patriotism, right? Then you got nationalism.
Right.
Jingoism is like nationalism, like toxic
Yeah.
level, right? Jingoism actually comes from, and I looked this up because I didn't know because it's always a funny word to me, right?
Oh, you should just pretended like you knew. 'Cause
Well,
you kinda-
okay.
Yeah.
Let me explain it like I knew already. Forget that part that I just said. So, jingo was popularized by a British music hall song contained in McDermott's War Song. That was the name of the song, and it was performed by this guy McDermott. And the chorus said this. We don't want no fight, but by jingo, if we do, we've got the ships, we've got the men, we've got the money too. And that's what popularized that term. And I was like, so it's like, when people would say like, by Jesus, we're good, that's going to happen. It was by jingo. They would like supplant that,
Maybe we should all try to bring that back.
So it's not a slur.
No, it is
It
not a
always seems
by
like it is to me.
jingo.
Maybe if our listeners, this is kind of be like how people know that you're a listener, is
Yeah.
if you
Jingo.
casually use by jingo and
We'll be-
comment.
Hey,
Or
hey,
instead of bingo, jingo.
no.
And you know what? We'll be listening.
Yes.
We'll be listening for
If a
jingo.
student comes up and says by jingo to us, we'll know.
Yes,
know.
we'll know.
We'll
We'll know.
know.
By jingo. One if by jingo, two if by C.
Yeah.
You're just
Finally landed.
You're full of them. today.
Yes. All right. So jingoism, it's this chest thumping nationalism that Mr. Hill was describing, that we're strong, we're right, let's prove it. And in the 1890s, it's going to blend with this idea of American exceptionalism, the idea that the United States doesn't just have a unique mission within the continental United States, a destiny within, but also a mission and a destiny on the outside in the rest of the world.
This is going to blend well with the theories of social Darwinism, which we've mentioned before, but that's that concept where we misapply evolutionary ideas to society and race and ethnicity, and essentially it allows some people to make the claim that strong nations just naturally dominate weaker ones. There's superior and inferior, and the superior wins, and we call that progress.
Right, and it's super convenient. It's a way to turn conquest that could be a pejorative term into science. It's scientific.
And if you say it's scientific, then you kind of win the argument.
Right.
Wait, so then you add a popular imperial script from the era. You have Rudyard Kipling's poem urging the United States to, quote, take up the white man's burden. It's a famous poem, but it frames empire as this sacrifice where, quote, we're helping, while describing colonized people as childlike and needing to be controlled. And it's really the burden of Western society to uplift these people.
Rudyard Kipling also wrote another famous work titled
The Jungle Book.
The Jungle Book. Yes.
Jungle Book. Mowgli.
Yeah. So he's got the poem and the book.
I was waiting
and
for you to make like a Jungle Book quote or something.
No, I couldn't possibly. So you've got this moral argument, right? That we're not taking, we're uplifting. And it's this idea of paternalism, but you add a flag to it and jingo.
Jingo. Yeah, and so if anybody objects, you just tell them that you're unpatriotic or you're naive or you're both.
So let's add a strategic blueprint here. It's all about sea power, and that comes from one of the kind of well-known naval strategists. I don't know any others besides him.
No, not really.
Any others jump to mind? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got to bring into account here. Doolittle. No, that was an Air
maybe?
Force guy.
Dewey?
Dewey? Yeah.
Admiral Dewey.
Who was the guy at Battle of the Coral Sea?
Oh, Nimitz. I believe.
Nimitz.
Oh yeah, Nimitz.
Lest we forget Nimitz.
Okay, thank
Chester.
you. Nimitz.
Chester Nimitz.
Besides
Nimitz.
Chester,
There's no limit to Nimitz.
besides Nimitz,
John Smith.
okay, there's also Alfred Thayer Mahan.
I say Mahan.
I would say Mahan too, but I don't know.
What an idiot.
I knew as soon as I said that you were going to say
But
something.
again, I'm not trying to be mean. I was referred to as Mahan, and that could be totally wrong.
If
And
there's-
I would accept
There's
your.
only one way.
No, don't look it up. Don't
Look it up. Are you using AI?
You can't.
No.
You can't.
What? I
Last
can't
names,
listen to his name. I have to read his
last
name.
names are different. You can't. No one knows how last names are pronounced.
Study.com.
Here we go. Ready,
All right.
set.
Oh, we're gonna keep going. Okay. So I'm just gonna say it's Mahan.
Here's this random dude on YouTube. Oh, there's an ad.
Oh boy, I love ads. Okay, it's done.
He's
Okay,
like, I gotta
now-
go to a chess match.
12 minutes into this.
No.
And well, this video has gone through so many
This is.
Oh boy.
We've got no. We're not.
from what you write. Is divergent.
Oh my
This is
this?
terrible.
God.
This guy's going to. It's.
You can say he achieves the goal of his writing
Who?
Oh, wait.
Say
Who? Say his
you went too
name.
far.
Shoot.
because what
This guy's
Oh
just in his
my
mom's basement
God.
talking about Alfred Thayer Mahan.
Look at this guy.
now this is one of those interesting people to talk about.
Oh, we just
Oh,
keep it.
geez.
You know what?
Okay, we'll
This
come
is- no,
back.
Let's move on.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
done.
let's.
Okay, we just
you
lost
know.
5 minutes
Sorry.
of our lives.
Oh
Sorry.
My God.
So I'm just going to say Mahan, Alfred Thayer Mahan, argues that global greatness depends really on one thing: a powerful navy. You need warships, merchant shipping, and crucially, you're going to need bases, naval bases spread throughout the oceans so that you can refuel and resupply.
And so that's where places like Hawaii become more than just a dot or dots in the ocean, right? They become a pit stop on the road to Asia.
Right. And a pit stop that comes with, well, let's just say a very messy story.
Yeah, so Hawaii's economy had been tied to sugar and trade for many years, and American planters had major influence on this trade. And in 1893, a group of mostly American and European businessmen and allies, often described as a quote-unquote committee of safety on the
Throwback to the
islands.
revolution.
Yep, they moved to overthrow Queen Liliuokalani.
Yeah, and then the side note, they're doing this to avoid taxes.
Yeah, they don't want to pay the tariffs.
Yeah, they said, how could we avoid this? Oh, let's just have a military coup.
We'll bring Hawaii under the umbrella of the United States so that it's part of it and no tariff.
Yeah, easy enough. And the U.S. government really tacitly supports this. U.S. forces are going to land in Honolulu under the claim of protecting American lives and property. And the Queen, she's facing unbeatable odds, and so she has to yield under protest.
Yeah, and her words are haunting. She states this, and I'm not going to try to mimic what Queen Lily's voice may have sounded like, but
No, you could, but you're not going to.
let me try to do it in a respectful and yet queen-like way. I yield to the superior force of the United States of America. not because she agreed with what they were doing, but to avoid bloodshed.
Yeah, and that's a critical moment. Imperialism isn't just wars you declare. Sometimes it's this quieter power of, threats by force of business interests, diplomacy, military presence, and kind of creating facts on the ground.
So Hawaii becomes U.S. territory, and a few years later, an outcome shaped by strategy, commerce, and ideology will take hold.
Right. And so, all right, and now to the event that launches the U.S. into the global headlines, Cuba.
Cuba is fighting for independence from Spain. Spain had held Cuba and other Caribbean islands for a couple hundred years at this point, and the conflict includes brutal Spanish policies, for sure, right? Reconcentration of Cuban people in certain areas, and it does shock people. It shocks the American public, and it does provide a truly humanitarian argument for intervention.
But really, what pushed this to the edge was the media in America. And we have
You don't say.
Exactly. We've got newspapers, and newspapers are really going to invent this idea that today we would call clickbait, where they're using sensationalized headlines and stories to create a loyal and hungry audience that wants to find out what's happening in Cuba. And we're going to call that yellow journalism. It's not that newspapers invent every fact, but they amplify outrage. They simplify complex issues, and they're really going to sell the war as almost like this moral drama that you have to tune in to find out what happens
And
next.
baby, do we got drama in Cuba. So, the USS Maine, the United States ship the Maine, explodes in Havana Harbor in February 1898, and Americans are left to ask themselves, accident or attack?
And at the time, many assumed that Spain is to blame. And so the line, "To hell with Spain, remember the Maine,"
Dang.
becomes a rallying cry,
It is catchy.
whether or not real evidence supports it.
Right. I think generally it's agreed that Spain did not blow up the Maine.
No, internal
Nah.
combustion
Internal
was most
combustion.
likely the cause of the
A design flaw.
blow up.
Design flaw. But what matters historically is how quickly public pressure, media framing, and political opportunity converge to lead us into war.
And so when Congress moves toward war, there's still fear. And the question, though, is should we liberate Cuba? And we will, right? We will liberate Cuba, and that's kind of the rallying cry is Cuba Libre. But once we do, what happens next? Should we annex it?
Right. And many Americans are suspicious that this is an effort to begin an imperial mission. So Congress passes the Teller Amendment, declaring that the U.S., quote, hereby disclaims any disposition or intention to exercise sovereignty over Cuba. Fancy way of saying we are going to liberate Cuba. We will not colonize it.
But don't quote us on that. Which is like saying, we're totally not taking your car. We're just going to borrow it indefinitely for, let's say, for freedom.
Yeah, and the war itself, as I said earlier, very short. The splendid little war, it only lasts about 3 months, and there are some famous battles in it. Manila Bay, because the Philippines will be involved in this as well, as that was a Spanish colony too, although it's very far away from Cuba. The battle.
I had a student ask a question. They're like, why would Spain's main fleet?
Spain's Maine.
Yes. Why would Spain's fleet be all the way in the Philippines? And I said, that's a really great question. Why does Spain care about the Philippines? And then we talked about its strategic location, and it was really a gateway into the South Pacific and China. But that's why the United States goes there. We're going to destroy Spain's fleet.
Yeah, and despite some of these famous victories, disease actually is going to kill a lot more U.S. soldiers than combat.
Yeah, John Hay famously calls it the splendid little war, as Ms. Keltner keeps saying. The phrase is revealing. When we say splendid, I mean, who finds it splendid, and little compared to what? I mean, for the Cuban people, this is of massive importance. For the American soldiers who thought they were fighting for other people's freedom, it's of major importance. But on a grand scale, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. But for America, it becomes a symbolic moment where we shift into a new style of thinking about our role in the world.
Yeah. And then comes Teddy Roosevelt. charging into history with his Rough Riders.
Yeah, and everybody's like, "Wow, man, we haven't had a war in a while. We might need a
we
war
better get
to
one. We better get
to
one.
reinsert our dominance or our masculinity into society." And so Roosevelt's going to charge up San Juan Hill. He'll become legendary, and it's also a story about how war elevates him politically, and he uses the war, or others use the war, as kind of brand building for him.
When I was a little kid, I loved the story of the charge of San Juan Hill.
Oh yeah,
She did.
I thought that was really cool.
it was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the idea of kind of searching for masculinity is.
Oh, you're saying
That's cool.
You're now.
You know what?
You're
When you're a
applying
little,
that to me.
when you're a younger boy, that is what you're obsessed
Yeah,
with. Like,
yeah.
I am searching for masculinity
I need
here.
it.
So.
Yeah. So the outcome, we get another Treaty of Paris. Always a treaty in
We
Paris.
Why
love the
not?
treaties of Paris.
Croissants.
And then the war ends, and Spain's like, "All right, you got us. You destroyed everything, and we really couldn't put up much of a fight. So here's Puerto Rico, and Guam, and the Philippines." And the United States kind of felt so bad about how we decimated Spain that we're like, "Look, yes, we defeated you, but here's 20 million to kind of make you feel a little bit better."
Here,
about-
go buy
about
yourself
this."
something
Yeah.
nice.
Kind of like Mexican American War.
Yeah,
We gave
yeah,
15
good-
mil
yeah,
for the
good
Mexican
continuity.
session.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the U.S. Goes to war saying Cuba should be free, and then we come out the other side holding multiple islands across the globe.
And this is sort of where the debate, it certainly doesn't start here, but it intensifies, right? The question of, wait a second, all this empire building we've seen from Europeans for years and years and years, are we now an empire? So the debate stops being theoretical.
And really, where this debate forces us to make a decision is in the Philippines, because it becomes this flashpoint. Many Americans are like, we shouldn't be annexing people who want their freedom. We just worked with them and really allied with them to defeat Spain. So what are we doing there? And some other Americans are saying, well, they need us, right? Senator Albert Beveridge frames it as this idea of destiny and superiority. He says, quote, "He has made us," and by he means God, "has made us the master organizers of the world."
He's so subtle when he says this.
Yeah, not so much. And opponents, there are many opponents to that line of thinking, and they form the Anti-Imperialist League. And their arguments vary. Some of their arguments are moral, some are constitutional, but some are more ideological about the racism and exclusion of all of this. But together, all of those arguments, they're going to challenge the idea that empire equals freedom.
And once again, Mark Twain is one of the loudest and sharpest critics. The line that Mr. Hill opened with, that talking about we have gone there to conquer, not to redeem, is part of this broader attack on the hypocrisy of liberation that really becomes a pretty powerful argument in the United States.
Right. And meanwhile, on the ground, Filipinos, likewise, who expected independence, resist American rule, leading to a brutal conflict that shatters the splendid narrative.
So now the U.S. is wrestling with that contradiction. How can you be a republic that controls colonies?
Kind of undergirding all of this is this question of
Undergirding?
how can the United States compete if we don't have a presence on the international stage, right? It's really about economics at a global scale, and the United States is already arriving late to the game. I mean, we've missed the scramble for Africa. We really didn't have much of a role to play in parts of the Middle East, and so really the place that we need to get to is China. How do we get into China, and how do we create a sphere of influence there?
So our Secretary of State at the time, in 1899, by the way, because chronology
Matters.
Sorry, I was drinking.
Drinking what?
I took a sip of water.
Okay. So Secretary of State John Hay is going to push the open door
But push it real good.
policy. Do you see what I did there? Push.
The door.
Yeah.
The door. The door.
And he's going to call for equal trading rights and access to China's territory.
Yeah, it's going to lead to some crises within China, the Boxer Rebellion, but Hay's going to frame the goal as really protecting China's integrity, quote, with equal impartial trade.
Yeah, as you know, his translation would be, "Don't carve up the market before we get a seat at the table." Like, I just got off of work, and I know you guys are partying, but don't end the party until I get there.
Yeah, because the Europeans had been at this for quite some time. And so this is imperial logic without formal colonization. We would call China becomes a sphere of influence to many different countries in the quote unquote West. And those countries now get access to their economy. They get pressure from diplomats from those countries, and they get to claim to this principle that they have free, I don't know how free you can call it, free for whom, free trade in China.
Right. So, okay. So now that we've got new territories and obviously new questions, now here come the progressives. Because while America is projecting power outward, it's also panicking about problems inward.
And we got problems. We got problems because of industrialization. It really grows out of urban poverty, unsafe workplaces, political corruption, corporate concentration, you name it, right? Reformers want to fix what they see as a system rigged by bosses and monopolies.
But the key is progressives don't share just one ideology. They share more of a mood or a vibe.
A vibe.
A vibe.
Okay.
A vibe.
Something is broken, and modern tools can fix it.
And these tools of which you speak, they range from quote unquote help the poor to quote let experts run everything, which can go great or go dystopian, depending on what it is.
Yeah, and progressives are mixed on imperialism too. Some oppose it because it obviously contradicts democracy for the places that are being taken over, but others support it because they see empire as a chance to spread the ideas of order and of health and civilization and kind of that same paternal mindset that's used in domestic reform.
One group that tries to shine a light on the industrial machine is investigative journalism, and Teddy Roosevelt will label them muckrakers. I think eventually most of them will take that as a badge of honor.
Yeah, they should.
And they will expose corruption and abuse by writing exposés.
And one of the great exposés comes about the Standard Oil Company, Rockefeller, Standard Oil, and this comes from muckraker Ida Tarbell. And she targets the tactics like vertical and horizontal integration that Rockefeller used to secure an alliance with the railroads to drive out rivals. And that's a direct quote from her.
Yeah, and do you have Lincoln Steffens, who looks at city politics?
Is it not Stevens?
I think it's Steffens.
Oh, it said Steffens.
Yeah, definitely Steffens. I watched a
Stevens,
YouTube video on
Stevens,
Oh,
you got,
did you watch a YouTube
you
video
got
on it?
PH, or you got V for Stevens.
Yeah.
But FF, I think it's got to be hard F. I think it's got to be
yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
know why I
for sure.
thought
Well, you
I
thought wrong.
heard.
Well,
Keep going.
sounds like Mr. Hill's track record is pretty clean on all the pronunciations
Mr. Hill's
so
pretty
far. So
literate.
pretty literate. So, the boss tweeds, the municipal political machines, all of that garbage that's going on in the Gilded Age. Lincoln Steffens would say, stop blaming them. He writes, the misgovernment of the American people is the misgovernment by the American people.
And then, of course, we have Upton Sinclair, who writes The Jungle, not the Jungle Book, but a book called The Jungle, to expose exploitation and misery in industrial labor. And this is all also about not just protecting workers, but protecting consumers as well from disgusting meat, in his case, because The Jungle is all about the meatpacking industry. And he'll later joke, this is a quote, "I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, I hit it in the stomach."
Yeah, Sinclair really was wanting to reveal how terrible the workers had it, but what caught people's attention was how disgusting the meat they were eating.
We're eating meat with rat poop in it.
Yeah, a lot of it. Disgusting.
Great.
So it's a dark little line there, but it captures something real. Reform often happens when the middle class feels personally threatened. And so unsafe food, unsafe neighborhoods, unsafe markets, we need moral reform.
And even before then, these muckrakers we just talked about, we had Jacob Rees, who used...
I thought it was rice.
It's Reese, Mr. Hill. It is Jacob.
Oh, I know it's
Reese.
Reese. Please continue.
He used photography, armed with a camera, to write to...
Go ahead.
Oh my God, I'm getting a stroke right now.
Well, cameras are usually
Okay,
for
hold
pictures,
on.
but
Jake, it's kind of hot in here. I'm kind of like, my earring is piercing the back of my ear, and I'm losing my focus here. Okay.
It's okay.
Jacob Riis
It's okay.
used photography and writing to force Americans to see urban poverty. And that's why, one half of the world does not know how the other half lives, hence the name of the book. So he showed the other half how the other half lived.
Yeah. And this is both an accusation and a warning. If you don't look, the problem doesn't disappear. It grows.
So progressivism isn't just policy, it's about reform. Different types of reform, but the social gospel is one of these moral reform movements that argues that Christianity should address the social and economic injustice of the world, not just individual sin, but the conditions in which their fellow Christians were living in.
And settlement houses put that into practice. And of course, the most famous settlement house will be the one run by Jane Addams in Chicago, the Hull House. And she describes the settlement house as, quote, an experimental effort to aid in the solution of problems engendered by life in a great city.
And we've been there.
We have been to the Hull House.
The Hull House.
We
in
loved
Chicago.
Yeah, I
it was
remember
way
it
cool.
was great.
Yeah.
You didn't go.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think you were there.
no.
Maybe
That was
the next,
before
you
your
know what?
time.
Maybe the next time we cruise into Chicago. Maybe next year sometime. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, something
Okay.
to
So
look forward to.
it's Jane Addams. It's not charity from a distance. It's move into the neighborhood, learn, serve, and advocate.
And that matters. It's a different model of citizenship. It's more hands-on, it's more local, and it's often led by women and certainly by middle-class educated reformers. And a couple of people in class asked me this week, Ms. Connor, what's the difference between the social gospel and the gospel of wealth? And they are similar because it's an attempt to have a responsibility to help those who are less fortunate than you. But the gospel of wealth, as made famous by Andrew Carnegie, that's all about the ultra-wealthy using their wealth as philanthropic efforts. The social gospel is more about it's more of a religious. It has a religious tone to it, and it's addressing, like you said, Dr. Garrison, the social and economic injustices in society.
So progressives, though, they're also worried about things like how do we make things faster and more efficient? They turn to experts and commissions and scientific management. How can we make factories work better? How can we make society work better? How can we become personal administrators?
And so the next step here is you start getting city managers, new agencies that will regulate things, and the idea that the state should be kind of the referee of the economy.
Yeah, and that's why the same era can produce both these humanitarian reforms, but also ugly ideas. The idea of eugenics, right? That science becomes a weapon when it's paired with prejudice.
But that's the progressive paradox. We have democracy expanded in some ways, but constrained and limited in others.
And you know who is so central to the progressive reform?
Oh, no, tell me who.
Women.
Oh, okay.
Women are so
Women.
central to this, as we've mentioned, but they don't fit into one mold. And I think that's important of any movement to recognize that you have what's called club women now. And these are networks of middle-class women who organize around education, public health, civic improvement, temperance, suffrage. And this new woman, she's more visible in higher education and in professions and public activism. And it really challenges older gender norms.
I love the new woman. By
Yeah.
the way. I think she's great. And then there's suffrage that hasn't come along yet. All right, because if you're going to reform democracy, you might want to include women in democracy.
So in this final push, right, during the progressive era, this is a movement that's been going on since 1848 at Seneca Falls, even before that, in smaller circles. Activists like Alice Paul and the National Women's Party are going to use pretty confrontational tactics compared to those who came before them. They're going to picket in front of the White House. They're going to go on hunger strikes, and they're really going to put a lot of pressure on the public.
And so they're really stepping out of the normal roles that women would be playing by going to such lengths. But banners outside the White House even go right after the president. One of them saying, quote, "Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty?"
For liberty.
How long? And not much longer. Finally, Congress passes the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment. It's hot in here. In
my gosh, did you
1919. And it's finally ratified in 1920. And so officially on August 18th, 1920, women were granted the right to vote in the United States.
Which
Not granted, took the right to vote.
earned.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is huge. This is a huge win. And also not the end of the voting rights story, of course, but because access still gets blocked by race, citizenship rules, and local suppression.
Right. So by the early 1900s, the U.S. is simultaneously building an empire, but also building a regulatory state and redefining who counts in the we, the people. Right?
And this is such an important point in American history because this is really the first time you have what's called modern liberalism, where now the federal government is going to be used as a tool to actually increase people's freedoms and opportunities, that those freedoms and opportunities had been oppressed or taken away because of the problems of industrialization, and now it's an active government that is supposed to level out that playing field.
And yet, paradoxically, while we're expanding liberty in America, we're starting to restrict liberty in other parts of the world. So how can we
Yes.
be both things at the same time? That's a paradox.
Very complex.
That is
We are
paradox.
a beautiful and ugly people, are we not?
Yes.
Paradoxical.
I mean, we three. We're
We're-
beautiful.
Yeah, the three of us.
We're the beautiful
Other
people.
people.
Other
Right,
people are
yeah.
ugly. So
Well, and thanks for tuning into this A Push for All episode by these three beautiful people.
we're beauties.
Hopefully you liked the episode. We're going to bring more progressivism and World War I next time. So stay tuned. Listen in on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Leave us a review. If you got a topic you want us to cover, send us a message on Instagram at A Push for All.
Until next time, keep learning from yesterday to make sense of today.